Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are super excited to present the next installment of our Lessons in Leadership series. And I am excited today to welcome Sarah Ioannides, Music Director at Symphony Tacoma and Artistic Director at Cascade Conducting for our next conversation. So Sarah, welcome.
Very good to be with you, Adam.
Thank you. So we will jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your work, both with Symphony Tacoma, as well as in your role as a traveling conductor? How do you see your leadership evolving and thriving in these roles?
My role is multifaceted as a leader. Of course, I have to come up with the vision and inspiration for what is going to excite it and synergize with the community. So it's a lot about what is that artistic vision? How do our musicians get utilized? How do we budget for them? Do we go into schools? Do we engage with young kids from an early age? What helps funnel them through so that we can not only do those main stage performances, but so that they can actually, the relationship can be for all ages and for all people. So I look at myself as really an advocate for the arts and of course music, but what is going to inspire people and move them to participate in something that I truly believe has value beyond any financial recognition, anything that we can prove. We know that there's sort of intelligence benefits from playing music and interacting with music. But the kind of the soul fulfilling factor of it, you can't quantify that. And I think one of the most important things is it's really about the relationship with people and the synergy of those shared, those who share a love of classical music, really. And so it's doing that in all different places with all different kinds of people. And it's different for people in different places because personnel changes. It's keeping our relationship going with them. Now, we do have Simply Symphonic coming up, and we've got kids being bussed into Symphony Tacoma's performance. And has been something that's been going on for decades. We've done all sorts of things like hospital programs, taking our musicians into the hospitals. In the past, Symphony Tacoma has been seen at the zoo. We've been seen on the waterfront. We sometimes play in pop-up locations like Safeway or on the street at the wonderful Broadway market there on Thursdays. So there's all sorts of other extra things. We've even had chamber groups playing in restaurants, and Symphony Tacoma also gets hired to go out and play for large-scale pops concerts at the Dome. So there is a whole multitude of things, but right now I'm very excited because we've got a special grant that's enabling us to work with a national specialist in planning for reaching new segments of the community. And we're very thrilled about the city's partnerships and Tacoma Arts Lives program to enable us to reach more people and go out into the community and put up smaller contingents of musicians in different places.
Your industry is exceptionally male dominated. And I wanted to hear from you a little bit about your thoughts on how to break that pattern of gender imbalance, and kind of specifically how to inspire women to help adjust that imbalance.
Well, it's a really important topic these days. I mean, it's both gender balance and it's also equity balance, BIPOC composers, conductors. And one of the things that I'm involved in, as you mentioned, is Cascade Conducting. It's also Cascade Composing. And this year, we're also going to have Cascade Choral Conducting as well. And we provide special scholarships for both people of color and for women and basically minority groups. So we particularly invite and we seek applications from a much more diverse pool. So that's one way that we can bring more people to the forefront. But also the way that I program artistically, it's really important to me that we have a really diverse offering, but without sacrificing the Tchaikovskys, the Beethovens, the Bernsteins, the things that we all want to come to the concert hall and hear. It's difficult because when you think about classical music, 300 plus years of classical music. Now, most of those people were, white German, Austrian, when you go back to the history of Bach and where classical music kind of came from, and it's only in the last 50, 100 years plus that it's branched out to all corners of the world. And so now, we don't want to just check box to say, well, do we have everybody represented? Because I also have to weave a wonderful artistic program together that balances. But we do really try to look at the variety of styles, compositions, even a pops offering, so light music, some Broadway, something that most people will know and have heard, as well as our standard symphonic offering. So that's part of it. Also grants. I mean, I mentioned how we got a Catalyst incubator project grant from, I didn't mention it was a League of American Orchestras, but a very competitive process to go through. But also there are other grants such as the Futures Fund grant, which spotlights some of our regional diverse pieces of music, modern composers, and we'll be looking to the future for who those composers will be. Certainly with the Cascade Composing, we had several women conductors and composers, and so the application rate is pretty high. I wouldn't say it's 50-50 yet, but certainly in my industry, I think the number of women that go in to study conducting, it's increasing tremendously. But at the top, I don't know if anybody's seen this movie come out called about Marin Alsop. She's one of the women conductors. She's really cracked the podium, but the glass ceiling, as they say, the podium glass ceiling. But there are few women music directors. I mean, that I'm one of maybe a handful of 10, maybe 20 in the United States of orchestras, and there are hundreds of orchestras. So we need to keep on etching that number forward. We need to keep showing that it's possible. And I think one of the challenges we all know is if you want to have a family and if you want to have a demanding career, you have to figure out how you're going to do that. And that was a great nut to crack. My children are 12, I have twins, and 14. So it's been very interesting because my journey as music director has been not just here in Tacoma, but also in South Carolina and Texas. And also my husband works and lives part-time in Connecticut. So trying to figure out how to get kids to school when we have to be all over the place has been a tremendous challenge, and one that I look forward to sharing with many, not just women conductors, but women, to say, look, you can do it. You just need to get the right head on your shoulders and infrastructure and break it down bit by bit.
I wanted to pivot a little bit because there's a unique aspect of your role which is really intriguing from a leadership perspective, and that is the dichotomy between your role as the home conductor for Symphony Tacoma, with a group of musicians that you work with on a regular basis, and kind of this is your home base. And then when you engage with other orchestras and symphonies, when you travel as a guest conductor, because it's unique in that you kind of have to parachute into somewhere. You spend, give or take a week working with a bunch of musicians that you probably don't know, most likely have never worked with before. And then you give world-class performances on the weekend, so you get there on Monday and Saturday and Sunday, you're doing these performances. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about leadership, your leadership philosophy and the skills that you lean on with your home orchestra, and then how you apply things when you're traveling as well.
I think the wonderful thing about working with an orchestra on a regular basis is that mutual getting to know each other, and also getting to trust each other. For something that maybe is not working with my orchestra in the first time, I might say, oh, well, I know that this is going to fix, because I know that person will just adjust. And so I don't need to repeat that. Whereas if I go to another orchestra, I'm not sure. And sometimes you have to make choices. Time is such a critical thing in what I do, because it's very expensive to get an orchestra on stage.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you balance the management of that, right? How much you're the conductor, right? And you're running the show, so to speak, but you can't just call a timeout and walk over to, a musician and say, hey, I need you to do this a little bit when you're in the midst of a performance, obviously, right? So how do you kind of execute that leadership or management where you decide how much am I going to let go and let the musicians run with it, or how much do I need to reel things in and kind of get us back on track? What does that look like for you?
And it's about connecting with people that make them and bring them into the moment, and for them to realize, okay, yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Yeah, okay. It's establishing that rapport, as you said, is quite difficult to do, but with a lot of musicians, it's not like we have the opportunity to meet each other before we go on stage. It's very strange. The clock starts, everybody's paid from the moment that 100 hours, clicks in, and then we're on. And yet we often haven't had a chat, we haven't introduced ourselves, all of this stuff, but we all know that everybody's kind of prepared themselves. But often that mental part is that last piece that you have to engage and get everybody on, and try to get the majority of people to click at the same time with what they're doing. So it's the way that you have charisma, it's the way that you share your excitement about the music, or you phrase something. It's the way that you give them the opportunity to shine, the way that you point them out to somebody else who may not be aware, and unless you kind of encourage them to kind of come out of their shell and listen to this. So, sign language is part of it. Emotionally, I have to be on, I have to be in it. If I start sort of, closing down, or, just sort of thinking about the music and not about the people that are playing the music, there becomes an immediate disconnect. So I think that connection between everybody in the room is critical, and listening to them, listening to how they sound, and being able to connect with that as well.
Well, and a clear component of successful leadership is communication. And what you're describing is a ton of your communication being nonverbal, right? It's facial expressions, it's body language, it's energy, it's all of those things that, in rehearsal, yeah, you can stop and have conversations, but in the midst of the performance, it's basically 100% nonverbal communication, which is fascinating.
There's another interesting part to it, and I found myself thinking more about this recently, is this dichotomy of it being a performing arts, but actually feeling quite I suppose I'm a kind of quiet, private person in some ways, and yet what I do on stage is very sort of out there, and having to make certain personal changes in order to make this thing come alive, and not to hold back on my enthusiasm of what actually it is we're doing here. Because I think the majority of people went into music because they really, really believe in it, and they really got excited by it at some point. Yet when we have to do a job, we don't always feel like that all the time. And as I said, we sometimes bring other things to the table. Can be exhaustion, can be simply, tiredness. But learning how to sort of access that energy, and learning how much it takes of me, and what I have to do to prepare to be able to do that well. What are the measures that I need to take, other than, of course, being fully prepared, knowing my stuff, knowing the people, knowing what I can about the people, but then also knowing how to manage the time, and knowing how much rest I need to go into something with 300%.
Can you talk a little bit? There's a specific story that you mentioned in Vienna. Can you talk? This is one example of kind of something that you learned along the way from a leadership perspective with regards to your traveling work.
Sure. I had the tremendous opportunity to go and conduct one of the greatest orchestras in Vienna, the Tonkünstler. And it was at a time where I didn't have an agent or a manager working for me. It was kind of one of the in-between phases. And I'd already worked with the person who invited me in a different context in Germany, and it had gone really, really well. And I'd trained some top choir, and just we'd had a really good energy and synergy and working plan. So I was then invited for this wonderful opportunity, and they asked me, well, what would you like to conduct? And, of course, I think about Beethoven and Vienna, and immediately I can't let go of this idea. Well, I have to conduct Beethoven because it's in Vienna, and they'll just be so good at it. And so off I go, and I do it, and the audience is absolutely excited, and the musicians are, well, they play Beethoven all the time. How many times have those musicians played, Beethoven 7? So there are other great composers out there, too many that we don't know of. But I really recognize that this wasn't afterwards, that this wasn't the right piece to take to Vienna. It would have been better to work with them on something that they hadn't played on a regular basis. And though I felt like I conduct my best, I'm not sure if it was right for them, because of course they have some of the world's greatest names, conductors coming to them to conduct Beethoven. And so, in retrospect, they didn't know me, and I probably should have picked something that would have been more interesting for the musicians to work on.
Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to discuss from a leadership perspective in your world?
I think the wonderful thing about coming out and participating in the arts is you get to have conversations about things that really, really matter and share similar perspectives. So we want to do that more for people in the community, and we want the community to feel that empowerment and that open that dialogue to how to make this a better place. I mean, not just Tacoma, but this world a better place. And I'm so respectful of the people that are here and what they have to bring to the table. I'm still quite new to Tacoma, but I truly love it. It's a great place to be and live, and very exciting for the future.